who is loyal to the working class, loyal to all of us, who fights for us not only in that building, but is on your picket lines. Been on everyone's picket line, been in your meetings. It's Susan Hatch Davis. Susan, here she is.
Woo, Susan!
I'm happy to be here with you today to support Fairpoint workers in your fight for fairness. I was invited today to read the letter that the Legislative Working Vermonters Caucus sent to CEO Sunu. With me today is Paul Poirier from Barrie. He's a member of the Legislative Working Vermonters Caucus, and Senator Anthony Polina, who is a member of the Legislative Working Caucus. Our caucus is 36 members strong, and I went to the picket lines in Burlington, and there may be some of you folks here today. I spoke with you about the Legislative Working Vermonters Caucus, and here today I would like to say, if your senator or your representative is not a member of the Legislative Working Vermonters Caucus, ask them why not. They are your representative here in the House, and it would be nice to have your voice represented in the Workers' Caucus. So the letter, and many of you may have seen it, is to Paul Sunu. Dear Paul Sunu, when Fairpoint Communications purchased our state's telecom network in 2008, your company made promises to the people of Vermont. Fairpoint promised that it would add 675 good jobs in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Today, Fairpoint has 20% fewer workers in northern New England than it did 5 years ago. Fairpoint promised that it would make major investments in our region's telecom network. Instead, Fairpoint went bankrupt in 2009, and since 2011 has lagged well behind its telecom peers in capital expenditures on key systems and infrastructure. Fairpoint made Sorry, my fingers are cold. Fairpoint made those promises, but it failed to deliver. Now we see that Fairpoint has abandoned good faith bargaining with its union workers and has imposed terms and conditions that would turn good middle-class jobs into low-wage jobs with bare-bones benefits. I thank you for fighting for good-paying middle-class jobs. Even after Fairpoint imposed its unfair conditions, your workers stayed on the job for 2 months and tried to reach a reasonable compromise. They offered you $200 million in cost savings, and yet you refused to work with them to find common ground. As a result, the workers of Fairpoint made the brave decision to strike for good jobs and quality service in northern New England. We want you to know that we stand with the union workers of Fairpoint and urge you to come back to the table and settle a contract that is fair to them and to all working families of Vermont. We expect you to settle a fair contract before the General Assembly meets in January. A prolonged strike would not only be a burden to workers, it would be a major disruption to your customers, who are our constituents. Already, the state's Public Service Department has expressed concern that your service has been seriously degraded during the strike. If you do not settle a fair contract by January, please know that the members of our caucus will work with our colleagues in the General Assembly to look more carefully at Fairpoint's past promises and current actions. It is time to determine whether your company has the financial strength and the managerial competence to properly serve the people of Vermont. Sincerely, Rep. Susan Hatch Davis, Co-Chair, Legislative Working Vermonters Caucus, Rep. John Moran, Co-Chair. We cede this letter to Honorable Governor Peter Shumlin and to Chris Reckier, Commissioner of the Public Service Department.